Okay, well, we actually have Mr. Dirk Führer. He's the Chief Commercial Officer of Steigenberger Hotels, very famous hotel brand, as you probably all know. Then we have Mr. Benjamin Jost. He's the CEO of Trust You, and as I announced before, Mr. Adam Medros, and one quite young participant, I might say. I hope he doesn't take it bad. It's Torsten Sabel of Customer Alliance, also a Berlin-based company. And I would like to welcome you all to the stage.
Thank you. Wir haben nicht mehr als zwei. Darf ich Sie bitten, das Mikrofon immer rumzugeben? Wir haben zwei Mikrofone. Okay, welcome everybody. Social business, our topic. So, first of all, one question to Mr. Führer. Social business for Steigenberger Hotel Group. What does it mean for your company to make business with social media?
Well, it's pretty young for us, I must admit. It is extremely important. Or has become very important actually over the last couple of years. When I joined Steigenberger, coming from a major big player, Hilton, where I used to work before, social media for Steigenberger was not really big. It has become bigger and bigger. Of course, it has developed over the years anyway. But when I joined, there was no Facebook page, for example, no Twitter account, nothing like that. The opinion about us, the reputation about us online is extremely important, because I think we're all the same. You trust more the experience of other travelers, other guests, probably more than advertisement. That's what we have actually realized over the years.
Can you already count the revenue, the ROI of social for your company?
That is extremely difficult to count that in numbers, but we know that that is an important source for us, and if we would ignore it, it would give us more harm to the business than anything else.
Okay, so it's more maybe about the risk of ignore than the return on investment on the first hand?
Absolutely, yeah. We can't ignore it. It's important to us, and in the past there was always a big line between the end consumer and the hotelier itself. Now online communication with the general manager is normal. There is no problem to talk to that person, even per du, so to say. That is something which is also new in our industry.
Okay. One question to Mr. Medros. What is your experience with TripAdvisor? How can TripAdvisor and social media help travel businesses?
I don't know. Okay, this one's on. So, I mean, certainly when in my last speech, I just talked a lot about how reviews influence people's decisions, and reviews can help businesses grow their businesses, get exposure, give them when they're a smaller company, give them a level playing field. But one thing, I didn't talk about it in my speech, but we did a study with the Cornell School of Hospitality on the ROI of social media. And you know, for people that are in the hotel industry, you know that you can, when you raise your prices, right, when you raise your ADRs, your occupancy generally falls. But our study showed that with good reviews on TripAdvisor, hoteliers could raise their prices by about 11% and not see a drop-off in their bookings, in their occupancy. And so social media, TripAdvisor and reviews can have an incredible ability for hotels to be able to grow their profits, to grow their pricing by producing a great product. People aren't always looking for the cheapest hotel, they're looking for great experiences.
Would you say TripAdvisor is all about rating and reviews, or are there any more benefits for the hotels and co to benefit from TripAdvisor?
We have an entire division called TripAdvisor for Business, and their mission is to focus on hospitality businesses, on hotels, and help them grow their businesses using TripAdvisor. So they're giving them tools like email tools for those hotels that don't have a CRM system to collect reviews. We work with partners like TrustYou and others to connect the back office systems that they use to review, to look at reviews, to get guest satisfaction surveys, and then tie that back to their TripAdvisor performance and make their hotel experience better, which should reflect in their TripAdvisor ratings and reviews. So it's not just about ratings and reviews. I think it's about a community of both travelers and hoteliers.
Okay. Talking about platforms like TrustYou or infrastructures like TrustYou, we just heard from TripAdvisor about ratings on TripAdvisor. What is TrustYou doing?
So basically, before I answer this question, I think it's very important to establish that when we talk here about social media, we don't really talk about Twitter and Facebook, etc. So we talk about sales channels for the hotels. And sales channels for the hotels can be a TripAdvisor, can be a Google, can be a Booking.com, HRS, etc. So what happens is currently that all you users out there, you choose which hotel you want to book based on the price and based on the quality. And the quality today is defined by what we call the reviews or the reputation of a business, right? So what Adam just said is totally true, and we have the same studies out there that you can basically increase your revenues, increase your prices when you have a better reputation. Now, for the hoteliers, it's very important to actively manage the reputation. I'll just give you one example. If you, a customer, you write something about this hotel, about your experience, this hotel can answer to your review, respond to your review and say, thank you, Mr. Smith, for giving us such a great review, and we really appreciate you being or staying at our hotel. Or it's a bad review and say, hey, sorry for your bad experience, but we are going to fix it. So that's how you can actively manage that. And TrustYou, to come back to your question, is a reputation management provider, and we give tools to the hoteliers so they can capture all the reviews wherever it's posted for all the hotels they have, and actively see what the users out there liked and disliked to fix problems, and also to respond in time and appropriately. Okay.
You were saying that Facebook and Twitter is out of this. So Facebook and Twitter have a certain role for reputation as well, isn't it?
I don't want to say out of it, but I would say it's not that important to drive real revenues right now. It's probably going to be more and more important over time, what the people say, but the end users are not currently searching for a hotel experience on Twitter. Okay. But they're searching for a hotel experience on TripAdvisor.
Sure.
So that's why I'm just saying the importance of these channels like TripAdvisor for the revenue of a hotel is just much higher than a Facebook or a Twitter.
Okay. Question to Mr. Sabel?
One thing to add to that. For us, it is very important to understand what's been said about us in Facebook and in Twitter. I mean, we are using a social media monitoring tool for that, to fully understand everything what's been told about our brand in the social networks. Facebook talks a lot about personal experience in hotels. Twitter, not so much. It's more about press releases and things like that. And then there is an exchange of information there rather than the personal guest experience.
I think it depends on the reputation, how close it is to the sales. I mean, you were talking about the sales platforms and reputation just in front of it, and Facebook and Twitter is a bit step further away.
But for us, it's important to get this full 360-degree view, right? Not only the sales channels, but also the social media channels.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sabel from Customer Alliance, do you combine this ratings from Twitter or Facebook together with the more sales-orientated channel, or is it the way for the sales-orientated channels as well with Customer Alliance?
Well, absolutely. I think it's important to do the monitoring part, so really looking at what is happening. But what is also very important, and that a lot of hotels forget, is to actively encourage your guests to share their reviews and share their experiences. And if you ask hotel managers, what is your best marketing tool? Many of them say it's the word of mouth. Yeah? And if you do the connection between word of mouth and online reviews, that's exactly what they are. They're word of mouth. So hotel managers should really basically get their guests to write reviews, ask them to share their experiences, and obviously share it on Facebook and Twitter and open them up as recommendation channels for a new business. Yeah, so definitely also a sales approach.
I'm coming from an agency, so lots of clients, I tell them about encouraging feedbacks, and they say, I don't want to encourage feedback, it makes work. And, you know, I don't want to be blamed more and more and more. So how do you convince hoteliers and other people to encourage feedback, which used to be in call centers, in the cellar? So how do you encourage them to bring it out?
Yes, so the issue with negative reviews is that usually people have a high motivation to write a review if they had a very bad experience or also if they had a very good experience. Yeah, so that kind of gives you a skew in the statistics. So that's why it's important to get the 90% of the people who don't write reviews and don't write recommendations to actually write recommendations and reviews, because this will give you really a full overview of what people are thinking about your business. So doing nothing will give you either a very negative or very positive skew, but definitely not the full picture.
Okay. And how do you do this? What experiences are there out in the market? How we encourage reviews? Are we saying like, you know, in former times in our hotel rooms there were those small sheets, please fill out?
A lot of hotels still use that, right? That's, I think, also a good way of collecting reviews. Just it's not very efficient because usually some intern has to put in the data somewhere. So doing basically online surveys, collecting reviews through tablets, all sorts of connections where you can have an online channel where you collect data is a very good way to do. We have the experience that if you ask your guests to write a review, on average, 25% would be willing to write a review, and that without any incentive. So really just go ask your guests to write reviews, and it will really help you.
Same experience at TripAdvisor, or?
Asking people to write reviews is probably the most powerful thing you can do. TripAdvisor has partnered with a few companies, and in some cases, some of the hoteliers, for example, Wyndham replaced their own review collection process with our review collection process. So they now send an email to all of their guests asking the post-stay, asking them to write a review, and the impact is huge. It's tying. It's huge on two fronts. One, it asks every guest, good or bad, to share their reviews, and you get that full, that full experience from the other 90%, as you mentioned. I think the other thing, though, is it says a lot about your brand and about how much you're willing to take unbiased feedback, to not have it tied to a proprietary platform, to not introduce what many consumers feel would be biases, right? If we don't allow hotels to offer incentives for reviews, and the reason we don't do that is because who would take an incentive to write a bad review, right? It biases the results and it ultimately biases the rankings. But asking people is 90% of the effort.
Are you asking people at Steigenberger, Mr. Führer? Are you asking people to write reviews after a few nights in your hotels?
Absolutely, yeah. We do that. It's something which has been done probably 50 years ago already, but not online, but offline.
Online.
We do that online as well. Again, to have this full view of customers and to stimulate them actually by approaching them direct to give us feedback.
Are you asking them to write a review on your homepage, or to go to TripAdvisor or to HRS or another site, or do you want to centralize your reviews? How do you operate with this?
Well, we leave that up to the customer where they decide to post it. Of course, ideally, they send it directly to us. That's important as well for us in order to share it immediately directly with us or the general manager and the customer. but actually it doesn't really matter. Yeah, we don't make a difference there.
Okay, Mr. Jost?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it does matter. It's one study we did is we compared a lot of hotels, and we've seen that for each additional 30 reviews, statistically, your overall score goes up by 5%, up to 5%. So it means like more reviews means better rankings and more positive reviews. So that's a fact. Now, strategically, as a hotel, you should look at the market place, and you say, okay, again, coming back to the sales channels, like a TripAdvisor, you say, shouldn't I send a certain percentage at least of my users, of my guests, to TripAdvisor to write a review on TripAdvisor? Because by doing that, I increase my rankings and my scores on TripAdvisor, which at the end of the day is turning into revenues, because if I'm ranked number 1 on TripAdvisor in Berlin or ranked number 50, it makes a huge impact on your revenue. So you use this review collection and what we call review distribution, so to whom do you want to send those customers, as a strategic tool to gain more positive reviews, which eventually turns into more revenues.
Do I understand you right that some customers you push to TripAdvisor, some you push to HRS, some you push to different platforms?
Exactly, but it's like kind of you just choose, it's like in our platform, you just choose the percentage of how many percent of your customers should see the TripAdvisor survey. How many percent should see that holiday check survey? What's the percentage that should see the Google Plus survey? Because Google Plus, at the end of the day, they collect reviews as well. It turns you into the ranking on Google Maps, and people find you on Google Maps, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you should just look at it as a strategic tool to distribute, basically, not physically the reviews, but distribute the guests to write the reviews and encourage them to create more buzz, because it eventually turns into more positive reviews.
Okay, so we are talking about a decentral ratings and review system. It's a bit different to other industries. For example, German Telekom, they try to bring everything home. They try to bring their reviews, their ratings home on their homepage, away from Twitter, away from Facebook. But you say for the travel industry, it's not going this way. It's more close to the sales channels.
Sure. I mean, if I'm running a hotel and I get asked, do you want to be on rank number 1 on TripAdvisor or rank number 10 or 20? I would say number 1. And if someone gives me a tool to get to this level somehow, I would use it. So and it's possible not by faking anything. It's just possible by being better than the competition. It's like having the best price at the best possible rate and for the best possible reputation that you have. That's what you should do. And yeah.
Mr. Sabel, do you agree on this?
Absolutely. I mean, when we developed this channel management to distribute reviews, that was the key goal, right? To help hotels really to see where they can increase their rankings by just asking guests to write reviews there. What I always recommend is not like just randomly distributing, but actually giving a strategic look at which portals are strong in which country, right? So TripAdvisor is very strong in the English-speaking countries, obviously also internationally as the leader in reviews. But there are also other sites such as Holiday Check or Trivago or Führer that all have their source markets. Führer for the Netherlands, for example, Holiday Check for the German-speaking markets. So depending on where you're sourcing your guests from, it's really important to strategically decide where you want to focus on. Obviously, you can have like a multi-channel strategy, right? But you could also only focus on one channel, yeah? Let's say the German market, which would then be Holiday Check, or your own website to increase conversion by integrating reviews there and having SEO juice and getting up in the rankings. So it's a holistic concept, and I think every hotelier should create his own strategy to think about where do I want to be ranked, what sales channel is important for me, and where do I ultimately want the guest to talk about me? And that can be more than 50 different sources, also including Facebook and other social media sites.
Okay.
From a consumer standpoint, I think that distribution of reviews does make sense, but and as you said, you need to be strategic about it, about where you drive your traffic. You need to factor in where it's best going to convert, right? So if you're sending a percentage of your traffic into Google+, but people aren't writing reviews in Google+ because there are no other reviews in Google+, that may be a missed opportunity to sort of grow that channel. So certainly people want to write reviews where they get read. They want to write reviews where other people are. And then you have to look at other, from my perspective, you have to look at a few other factors. So 1 in 3 of our reviews come in now are Facebook connected. So the user has connected their social graph, and other users then can see how they're connected to that person. That over time is going to have a very powerful impact on potentially on review conversion in terms of how many people finish a review and how many people then read that review and convert into a paying customer.
Did you say 1/3 or what was the number?
1/3. So 1 in 3 reviews today on TripAdvisor, and again, 60 pieces of content are being collected every minute. 1 in 3 of those pieces of content are Facebook connected users.
One other question. We are talking about reviews and ratings, maybe for Mr. Medros as well. What's the difference? I mean, we all know this 5 stars thing, and we know the text thing. Right. So is there a trend to the short form, to the ratings, or more to the reviews? Which one is more important? Do you deal different with them?
Well, reviews are certainly what we focus on, and reviews are a rating plus text. We have a 200 character minimum count for hotel reviews. We feel very strongly that short hotel reviews are not that helpful. Sometimes there's not a lot to say. It was a comfortable place, it was nice, it was clean. But the value for the community is in reading people's experiences and reading about the details of those experiences. So we encourage people to write longer reviews. We generally see longer reviews on TripAdvisor than we see on other platforms. Certainly longer than you see on hotelier platforms or OTA platforms where those reviews are a little bit more transactional. Was it a good price? Was it clean? And that may be sufficient, but I think users like longer form reviews.
Did you ever encourage like kind of a storytelling within the review? As you just said, not just clean, nice, central, but to make it a bit more interesting, this kind of content?
I mean, people certainly get creative in their review writing. In our forums, there's a small but very loyal group of people that write things called trip reports, and they write not just a review, but a review of multiple things, almost like an itinerary. I showed you in my presentation, and we're increasingly building tools where users can see not just the hotel that the person stayed at, but the restaurant they also ate at, the things that they did, the whole combination of that trip, and use that to plan their own trip. So the example I was giving is, if I'm reading reviews from someone that's been to Paris with their kids and I'm going to Paris with my kids, I want to know what restaurants they ate at. I want to know what else they did and whether those things were good or bad, because they're coming from a perspective, a traveler type perspective that matches my own. And that's different than who I am. When I'm on a business trip, I stay in very different hotels, I eat at very different restaurants than when I'm traveling with my 7-year-old and 9-year-old.
Okay, one question to the tool providers more. How do you differentiate ratings to reviews? Is this important for you, or doesn't play any role?
I think ratings and reviews in general, I would kind of put in the same area.
The stars and the stories.
Well, the stories I think are always more important than the stars, obviously, because the stories is the stuff that you remember, right? And these are also the factors that really make a review or a rating a recommendation.
But I don't read 100 stories. I see the stars, and if it's less than 4 stars, I don't go on. So,
I mean, the ratings definitely give you a good overview of like the total score. But I think every educated customer would read through a couple of reviews to see if there are any biases. So, I would say the content is pretty important. If you only see like ratings, I don't think people would make a real decision. The content is important. Okay.
So I would say from a business perspective, and from an end user perspective, you have two different problems. The business has the problem that you have thousands of reviews from different platforms that you have to somehow digest to fix stuff that is not good, and so the question always is like, how do you do this? And at the very beginning, 2008, when we started Trust You, we started with a technology, and that's where we founded the company, which was a semantic technology that can really digest the concepts of what the users in the text information would write about. So we would say, oh, this person wrote about the service, even though they said the stuff was great. So it was a positive comment about the service, and we can aggregate this in certain concepts that are important for the hotels, so they can go to the center of the problem or see positive things that are going really well. I think long-term, from the end consumer perspective, we are facing the problem that there's so much content out there, which you just said. No one, at the end of the day, wants to read through hundreds of texts, even if it's long text, but you also don't want to miss it, right, somehow. So because you want to digest it somehow, and you think it's great that so much content is out there because it helps you to make a good decision, but you don't want to read through all of the stuff because you just don't have the time. And I think it's a challenge, the same challenge on a different side that the B2C companies have. How can I filter and drive the user to the right property at a very short time to, at the end of the day, sell them this hotel, and that the user don't have to search, and then at the end of the day, I don't know, jumps to another site and is not booking through, let's say, TripAdvisor.com.
This is an interesting point. Just last question for the ratings things. Talking about sales perspective, ratings more important or reviews?
It's like, I think for me, a review is a rating and a text. So that's my definition. And a score, for example, the overall score that you would search for, or the popularity ranking, that is defined by all the little ratings that users gave when they wrote a review, a rating and then a text information, and then you sum it up to an overall score, which you need for basic filtering, but then you need the text information for the experience to help you drive this decision, to make that good decision that you feel comfortable. And you don't do this just by, oh, it's a 4-star property, because there are many different 4-star properties. It doesn't tell you that much.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm too lazy. I don't want to read long stories. I want to make a quick decision.
And that's a good point. I mean, Adam can probably say more about it, because I think that's still somehow an unsolved problem in the industry that we are facing from a B2C angle. A filtering, a search, and somehow we call it review summary, or tops and flops, right? Give me the tops and give me the flops for this property, and I have exactly 10 seconds to digest this. And then go on. And if I filter, show me those properties where the people said something positive about this filter that I just said, like romantic hotel in Paris. Like, show me the positive reviews about the romantic stuff, and not the 1,000 others where they talk about the great whatever
and even
stuff.
Romantic can be very different from one to another.
Absolutely. I think it's why it's such an unsolved problem, because your definition of romantic and my definition of romantic, your definition of young children and my definition of young children might be very different. So there are two things. One is, I think, and Ben, Trust You has done this, there's more and more semantic technology out there where people are extracting bits and pieces of relevant content and letting users choose what's relevant for them. And there are many factors that go into the choosing of a hotel. Semantic information, rating, even things like what tube station or what subway stop is it located near, and people talk about those things in the text of their reviews, extracting that and making people aware that this is close to this location can be very powerful. The one thing I will say about long-form reviews is there's another side to long-form reviews, which is people come back after they've booked their hotel, before they take their trip, and they read TripAdvisor reviews almost daily. And when we ask them why, it's because they want the insider tips. They want to find that piece of text in the review where somebody says, don't miss a drink on the rooftop bar, or don't miss happy hour at 6 o'clock, or ask for a table next to this. those tidbits of information that are never going to come out in a rating, but are core to that insider experience, to getting the most out of your trip. And I think that reviews play both of those, can contribute both of those to your decision-making process and ultimately your enjoyment of your trip.
One question to Mr. Führer. Making reviews visible, making them manageable, manage the chaos out there. Do you have any solutions for Steigenberger on this topic?
I don't think it's a chaos. To be frank.
Sorry?
I don't think it's a chaos. It's the job of the hotel general manager, basically, and we have trained all these JMs how to react on and how to answer on those remarks that you receive on a daily basis. For us, it's again extremely important to do that, to answer all comments, whether it's negative or positive. And I rather have hotels with more negative replies than no replies. Yeah, because I think if you don't reply to those things and have a high score, people do not really trust you there as well.
So talking about review management, you called it active review management, I guess. When I write a review at TripAdvisor tonight about my night at Steigenberger, a few days later, you will answer to this?
Should not even be a few days later. It should be immediate. Yeah, it should be. It should be, and it is actually. Actually, yes, we do that. That's what the GMs are trained for. They have to reply, and they do reply.
So they get a real-time alert. There's a new review on TripAdvisor, and then they answer.
They don't answer the next hour, but they answer latest 24 or 48 hours later.
How many hotels on your site are doing this, Mr. Medros?
1 in 4. I said it earlier. Is 1 in 4 reviews are now getting a management response, so the number has doubled in the last year. More and more hotels have adopted platforms where they get these alerts and where they work with partners like Customer Alliance or Trust You to make sure that they can respond to those reviews. And we also tell the reviewer that the management responded. Given that most of the reviews are positive, it's just a reinforcement for that brand, for Steigenberger Hotels. It's a reinforcement that they cared not just about the business and the dollars that you spent in the past, but going forward, they want your business again. So it's an incredibly powerful platform.
Okay.
What you also see is a trend, of course, of performance-based bonuses based on online reviews. So that's why obviously management is incentivized to proactively manage these reviews. And I don't know if you do that at Steigenberger, but we have a couple of customers that actually pay their GMs bonuses based on the online reviews.
I just know from Amazon that brands are not allowed to respond to feedbacks, to reviews. And that for the travel agency, there's no problem. So all the platforms where reviews are, brands are allowed to interact?
So I would say, so the hotels are obviously allowed if they can, but unfortunately not all the platforms allow it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So not all the platforms out there allow management responses. Booking.com, for example, just launched it, I think a couple weeks or a month ago or something, where they allowed management response. Before that, they didn't allow it. And then it's a trend in the industry that more and more allow it, but it's still not that everyone really allows management responses. And to what Adam just said, we also see that trend that more and more reviews get a management response, but still, last study we did in our portfolio, like almost 60% of all hotels don't respond at all. So there's still a lot of education that we have to do in the market, where you have hotels and hotel brands that work professionally, like Steigenberger, but there are also a lot of independent hotels out there that just don't have the time or not the resources or not the strategy in place, even though it's so important.
What does responding mean? Let's make it a bit more tangible. Does it mean to say sorry? Does it mean to send out a voucher because something went wrong? Or what does responding mean?
Like normally, if you say responding, all the hotels, the first reaction is, I have to respond to the negative reviews. We think it's also important to respond to the positive. And we make that example, like if a guest would walk to you at the reception and say, I had a really great experience, your staff is wonderful, and the food is fantastic, you wouldn't turn your back on this guest and just not say anything, right? The same happens online, with the difference that thousands of other people are listening to that not conversation. So we always say, if you have the folks in place and the stuff in place, your strategy should be to respond to everything. And to your question, how to, I think there are a lot of guidelines that you can set and you have to set in your organization. Obviously, you shouldn't respond to a negative review. You customer, you have no idea, and we hate you, because that's not cool. Because again, thousands of others are listening to that, and they would see you as a hotel that actually is not really a hotel you want to stay at. So you should respond appropriately, and you probably can tell more how you respond than I do.
I mean, absolutely right. You never respond negative to a negative comment. I mean, that's something which is very, very obvious. And you have customers and customers. You have customers who give you negative feedback just to get something out of it, right? Because they want these vouchers, which you just have mentioned. And well, this is something you have to live with. That was also before. The online world has been there, and now those things are more and more common that people complain. And you have people who is their passion to complain, and we have had complaints from the one and the same customer in different hotels, of our group, of course.
Is your goal to respond or to solve the problem when you respond to negative feedbacks?
We of course try to solve the problem, but the stay is over, and you can't really solve it because the bad experience is there. And if it was a bad experience, which was really then to our fault because it was a service issue, for example, then we're trying to compensate that, of course. But if the customer says, okay, I haven't slept, it was too noisy when I opened my window, so what? I mean, yes, I have to respond positively, but I can't change it immediately, and I won't give this customer a voucher to compensate his bad experience.
I'm just asking because a few days ago I saw stats from Air Berlin. Air Berlin has at the moment, I think, 2,000 running lawsuits, and this is 10 times as much as 5 years ago. So these are lawsuits. This is not just a complaint. So it's hard to talk to companies like this, I guess, about responding to complaints online when they have such serious business problems there.
Yeah, but just I think it doesn't end there. If a customer has a negative experience, what you should do, and tools provide you with that insight, is you should obviously use this insight that this customer shared with you, positive or negative, to fix stuff, right? You go sit down with your staff and say, look, the coffee was cold again this morning, we have to fix that, right? Stuff like this. And over time, you will see that your reviews and the positive feedback of your customers will increase, because you just fixed the things that you need to fix and you get better, and that will, mid-term to long-term, will result in better and more positive feedback.
Okay. One question concerning search engines. The search engine, they play an important role for you, for sure. Talking about complaint management, talking about reviews, do you have any recommendations how you respond, how you handle reviews to get your positive reviews high in Google? Is this a point for you? That's a very technical, detailed question, eh? Yeah. I'm sure you're thinking about topics like this?
I mean, obviously, there is a strategy to integrate reviews on your own brand.com site, right? Which has an SEO effect. You can argue what effect it has, etc. And every text, every response, every unique content at the end of the day that you put up there has an effect on SEO, and it will be captured by search engines like Google. So there is a strategy about the reviews, which is user-generated content, unique content that has an effect on SEO, and you should play that if you have an SEO strategy in place.
Actually, concerning Google, there are 3 proven factors that increase your ranking concerning the reviews. I mean, obviously, the Google algorithm is like the Coca-Cola recipe. Nobody really knows how it works, but a lot of people A/B test some stuff. So there was a group of scientists that actually A/B tested the number of reviews you get on Google and the frequency of reviews, and also the rating, so the average score of reviews. And there's a proven correlation that if you get more reviews and if you get frequent reviews and if you also get good reviews, obviously your hotel is more relevant than other hotels, because Google's goal is to find the most relevant result for the customer. So a hotel that doesn't collect reviews on Google, for example, is, let's say, more irrelevant than a hotel that collects a lot of reviews. So the frequency, the average rating, and the number of reviews has an effect on the SEO side.
Okay, let's take a second to Google. Compared TripAdvisor compared to Google, talking about reviews. What do you think? As a hotelier, where do you want to bring your customers? To Google or to TripAdvisor?
I think you can't see the world black and white, so there's always gray shades in between. I would do both as a hotel manager, and I mean that's also why companies like Customer Alliance exist, to really help hotels define their strategy, right? And if I were a hotelier, I would try to be ranked best on every portal, on TripAdvisor, on Google, because it increases my my own ranking of my own website, where I can get commission-free bookings. It's really, I mean, up to the hotelier, but I would do all sites that have a direct influence on my business, and not either or.
Mr. Jost, if you have €1, where do you invest it, the review? To bring it to Google or to bring it to TripAdvisor?
Well, I would just look at the sales channels. Where do I get most of my bookings from, and what is the best conversion? And that's where I would invest it. If TripAdvisor would convert my €1 better than Google, I would invest it in TripAdvisor.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience? We talked a lot here. I come around with the microphone.
Hi, you were saying about TripAdvisor for businesses, and don't get me wrong, I love TripAdvisor, I use it everywhere I go, but I know that it can make people overcritical, like people do look for faults and stuff just to put it on TripAdvisor. And for big chain stores, that isn't so much of a problem, but I know a lot of small hoteliers and places that are afraid to go on TripAdvisor because a negative review can ruin their business completely and utterly. I mean, how do you help these people get them on TripAdvisor and get them started and stop them being frightened of it?
Well, I think there's a little bit of truth and a little bit of myth in what you described. I think that there are lots of examples of businesses on TripAdvisor, small hotels that 10 or 15 years ago could never compete with bigger chains, because the marketing budget that those chains could push into travel agents, could push into online travel agencies or travel bureaus or advertising far outweighed what that small hotel that offered a great experience could do. So I think TripAdvisor has actually democratized the ability for small hotels to embrace customer feedback, make their product better based on that feedback, and get more business. And there are tons and tons of examples of small properties, small restaurants that have thrived because of the exposure. Sometimes, you go to these places and they're so full, and there's this TripAdvisor effect of you can't get in because they're popular on TripAdvisor. If I'm a business owner, I think that's great. So I think it's really for business owners just getting over this hesitancy to ask people to share feedback. Yes, people are critical, but I think that's an effect of having online channels like Facebook and Instagram and TripAdvisor and other things where people are sharing their opinions and therefore sharing the details of their experiences. I don't think it's a TripAdvisor specific phenomena.
More questions?
Hi there. Does that work? Hello? There we go. Yeah, I work for TripAdvisor. We're a new online review site. And one of the problems that we found, or one of the concerns that hotels have, is fake and anonymous reviews. Do you think that's still a problem today? And if so, how should it be managed?
Yeah, well, fake reviews are definitely a problem because they basically underrule the whole thing of being trustworthy on reviews. Yeah? They're like stories of hotels that write bad reviews for their competitors. There are stories where guests come and say, hey, if you don't give me the suite for $50, I'm going to write a bad review about you. I mean, these are all horrible stuff, but I think they're the exception. If you, as a hotel, really get the feedback from your guests, from all your guests, and request feedback, you won't have these issues.
Any other recommendations concerning fakes?
Yeah, it's both for fakes and for negative reviews. And we got asked, like, hey, what should we do? I think I have a negative review or a fake review. So the only thing that you can do is get more reviews. So it boils down to this. More reviews help you to prevent any fake reviews. If you have one fake review out of 3, that probably hurts you. If you have one fake review out of 300, doesn't matter. So it's kind of getting more and more and more reviews on all these channels is the best strategy that you can have in place.
Is there any industry standard to get rid of this fraud, to get rid of this fakes? I mean, especially in the travel industry, fakes play a huge role, I guess.
I mean, I think it plays a huge role because the press is is always picking on that point because
bad internet.
A journalist proved to write a fake review. That's why all the reviews are fake. That's basically it, and it plays a much bigger role, I think, in the press and what we talk about in the industry than it actually does on the real communities, on the real sites like on TripAdvisor, because they have all the mechanisms in place. Sometimes it happens, right? But it's like, if someone walks into a supermarket and steals something and he was successful, it doesn't mean that everyone is stealing from a supermarket. So it's, that would be my answer to that.
And maybe also, really collecting all reviews and creating a one score. With us, it's the customer satisfaction score that gives you all the reviews throughout the internet. Gives the customer basically the full picture of what people are saying about the business, and that can give you also a better impression. Can be. Okay.
One last question from the audience.
I've got one question regarding the reviews. My name is Christian, I'm a student, and I think, would it be interesting to rate reviews so that users or customers, for example, at TripAdvisor, rate the reviews of other guests? For example, like Amazon did it, or do it. Is this interesting?
We do let people vote whether a review was helpful. So positively vote and say this review is helpful. Years ago, we had the ability for people to vote that a review was not helpful, and what we found is that it didn't add much to the conversation. A review that's short, or they're fairly easy to scan, and people ignore them. And the reviews that get helpful votes, I think, stand out, and it's pretty clear the ones that add a lot of value to the site. So, anything more complicated than that, and I think it becomes hard to untangle what does the rating mean. So we try to keep it, in that case, very simple.
Talking about the future, let's say we are sitting here in 2 years' time, ITB 2015. What has changed about social business for the travel industry, about reviews? What do you think? One statement each, please.
I think there's going to be definitely more academic research on the correlation between social media and prices and revenue, so ROI. I think there's a lot being done already, as you cited a Cornell study, which basically shows if you can increase your score by 1 point on TripAdvisor, you can basically increase your price by 14% or what it was, and remain with the same occupancy. So there's definitely a lot of research still to be done, but I think there will be more knowledge about how social media correlates to revenues and direct business.
Yeah, I think from a business side, what we see as a trend is that the whole CRM, so customer relationship management, and ORM, online reputation management, will grow together. What that means is, for the hotelier, it would be nice if Mr. Smith would walk in, and I would immediately see what Mr. Smith on my screen under the reception. I would see what Mr. Smith was writing about the last time he stayed at my property or my brand, and what he liked and disliked, so I can really interact before the stay and not after the stay. So those two industries will grow together, and those two industries will exchange data points with each other. So I know Mr. Smith, you know this review, let's exchange that and let's put it up so the hoteliers can make better decisions for Mr. Smith. And I hope that the B2C side will incorporate more and better technologies to better guide the user to the content at the right time, and present that content in a manner where it's easier for end users to go through and digest this content and make better decisions based on that.
Okay, so individualization for consumption of communication and for the whole process as well, for the service.
Exactly.
Okay, Mr. Führer?
I actually fully agree what's been said on the example of Mr. Smith. I believe that loyalty to hotels today is still very much built through loyalty cards and the benefits that you have. But I think that's going to change. That loyalty is more an issue of a matter of trust and the experience other people have made in our products. On the other hand, I think that hotel colleagues, they all understand how important the measurement is. However, they do not respond today. As far as I understand, there's still, especially from the bigger chains, the opinion that, okay, well, we are a big chain, we have a strong loyalty program, and we don't need that. Not that strong, but the awareness is not there yet. And I think this is a big opportunity for the smaller hotel companies or for the smaller hotels, individual hotels, without the marketing budgets. I think that's been said before, to get a higher market share through being actively working with these channels.
So like in the good old times, users, customers, and employees come closer together, know each other better, and so can interact better and build up loyal relations.
Absolutely.
Mr. Medros, how does TripAdvisor look 2015? What do we have to expect?
Well, on the business side, I agree with what everyone has said. The ratio or the percentage of hotels that are not actively managing their reputation and their reviews on TripAdvisor is going to be a very small number. I think it's going to be table stakes, if you will, right? You're going to have to do that. On the consumer side, this is the part I love. I think there's going to be, in 2 years, you'll see the combination of mobile and social be incredibly powerful, right? Personalized results that are not just about who you are, but the context that you're in. So when I take my phone with me on a trip, it's not enough that it knows my location and what's nearby, but it should also help me figure out what's the right things for me nearby. And those right things for me can be based on past experience, things that I explicitly saved and said I wanted to do. I wanted to go to that museum. I wanted to visit that art gallery. They can be based on things that I've done in other places that TripAdvisor thinks you're going to like, and they can be based on context like weather and time of day and how much, how long I'll be in the city. I think you're going to have incredibly powerful, personalized experiences with you on the go, driven by TripAdvisor content.
Okay, so thanks a lot, sir. I think social business, quite a new word. We just heard that everything is just starting. Reviews and ratings have a big influence at the moment on the industry. And in further times, we get more individualized services, more data, big data, maybe the next thing coming, and providing better services. I think we are in an industry or in the field of social media which brings quite a lot in the future, and we are right in it, so have fun out there. Thank you.